C'est quoi, c'est quoi, c'est quoi, je savais, et tout le monde m'aime. I don't know, then it's smart. Mon king finger, Osari Maribo. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. What's a cool, just a go up with. I remember. That concept, Grandago. sare mare bagabari bachasabe kine bagabari bachasabe kine bagabari otete baguma kama kangba pukwa kangba puku otete baguma kama kangba pukwa otete baguma kama kangba puku otete baguma kama kangba pukwa otete baguma kama kangba pukwa otete baguma kama
Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to News Talk with yours truly, Chris Anu, coming to you as usual from the great state of Texas, Houston, Texas, to be precise. Thank you for tuning in. I come to you with very excited updates with what is happening in La République du Cameroon, talking about the return of Paul Biya. There is no longer any doubt about that. Paul Biya is finally back in the country. But one mystery remains unanswered. Whose hand was that being waved in that limousine motorcade? Was it Biya's hand or not? I have taken time to examine the footages and the videos, and I have my investigation, the results of my own investigation that I will bring to you shortly right here. Also, I will be taking you to Yaoundé, where the Naira 10, talking about Sisiko, Ayoktabe and others, were in court last Thursday, August 20th, for 10 minutes, and then they were sent back home. The case was adjourned, and I understand they are going back to court next month. Barrister Effoudou, who is one of their attorneys, will be joining me by phone from Yaoundé. But the main subject of the day has to do with Biya returning home in the midst of a stack of problems that he has to resolve. Talking about the Ambazonia War and the Vatican's appeal for mediation. We're talking about the fake decrees that were signed while he was in Geneva. We are talking about the succession question and many others. We're gonna be discussing that tonight, and I will be joined by Prof. J.J. Asongo and Ire Obenson. They will be joining me to do justice, and I think Sama Thomas may also be joining me tonight to discuss this subject. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay put. When I come back, I take you right into the hand-waving machine in Biya's convoy. So please don't touch your remote. I will be right back.
ABS can help you reach your target audience like never before. Advertising on ABS, you'll benefit from our extensive reach and dedicated viewership. We offer special advertising packages during primetime slots and popular shows. You'll also be featured on our social media platforms, reaching an even wider audience. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Take your business to the next level. Contact our advertising team at absafricatv@gmail.com. ABS can help you reach your target audience like never before. Advertising on ABS, you'll benefit from our extensive reach and dedicated viewership. We offer special advertising packages during primetime slots and popular shows. You'll also be featured on our social media platforms, reaching an even wider audience. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Take your business to the next level. Contact our advertising team at absafricatv@gmail.com. ABS can help you reach your target audience like never before. Advertising on ABS, you'll benefit from our extensive reach and dedicated viewership. We offer special advertising packages during primetime slots and popular shows. You'll also be featured on our social media platforms, reaching an even wider audience. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Take your business to the next level. Contact our advertising team at absafricatv@gmail.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once more, thanks for joining me tonight. Paul Biya is back in Cameroon and, of course, in Yaoundé. But before I get there, I'd like you to hit the subscribe button if you are joining by way of Facebook, YouTube, and that notification bell you find on the YouTube. Hit that bell so that every time we are live, you are one of the first to receive notifications about the show. So, Paul Biya is back. There is no longer any discussion, any debate, any contention about it. But the question that many Cameroonians are still left to answer is, whose hand did we find? Whose hand did they find in that convoy? Look at the image there, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the image there. that remains the subject of controversy in Cameroon and among Cameroonians. You see, the man sitting in the limousine there, you cannot see their face. You see a hand, a right hand lifted up, waving at the crowds, wearing a white shirt, a black suit. We can see that. But the face cannot be seen. The hand, apparently from our own research here, is in the hand of Paul Biya. And I am coming to explain that, ladies and gentlemen. But let me take you to this explanation. Again, you see the hand on your screen. Now, many people say that was Paul Biya. Others say, no, that wasn't Paul Biya. Again, I took time to research this. And I am going to bring you my conclusion as to what I found out. And this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Whether Paul Biya returned to Cameroon is no longer the question. Of course not. That controversy should now be considered substantially settled. When he returned from Geneva after more than 10 weeks, hundreds of Cameroonians had been mobilized along the route from Yaoundé in Simalène Airport. They sang, they danced, they waved flags. They waited to see the 93-year-old president, whose prolonged absence had generated extraordinary speculation about his health and ability to govern. But there was one problem. They never really saw Paul Biya. All those people lying up at Simalène Airport never really saw Paul Biya. What the crowd saw was a presidential limousine and a protruding hand from the limousine. The hand you see on your screen, the hand waving. That's all the people saw. No face, no presidential head emerging from the window. No unmistakable image of Paul Biya acknowledging the population that had been assembled to welcome him. Just a hand. And again, you see the hand on your screen right there. That inevitably fueled the question: had Paul Biya actually returned, or did Paul Biya actually return? 2 days later, however, Biya appeared at the Unity Palace. On Saturday, that is August 22, he and Chantal Biya and his cabinet received the newly crowned African champions, the indomitable Lionesses. He addressed the players, interacted with them, and presided over their decoration as Knights of the Order of Valor. The presidency released extensive photographs of that ceremony. So, yes, Paul Biya is back in the country, is back in Cameroon. But settling that question has created another. And that one is, why did Cameroonians not see him when he arrived? Why did Cameroonians not allowed to see him when he arrived? And more intriguingly, whose hand was waving from that limousine window? Whose hand was waving from that limousine window? Now, ladies and gentlemen, take a good look at the photograph on your screen. Take a good look at that image on your screen. Don't look at the car. Don't care about the car. Just look at the hand. The person is positioned in the rear passenger area of the presidential vehicle. That is certain. Even CRTV mentioned that. The hand extended towards the crowd appears to be a right hand. Of course, that itself is perfectly ordinary. Sitting beside a window, a passenger naturally uses the hand nearest that opening to wave, as we see on the screen there. But look closer. I want you to look closer. There is a conspicuous gold-colored ring that serves as a landmark on that hand. I'm sure you can see the ring there. Let's make sure that the photo is very conspicuous there. Please put the full image of that photo on the screen, please. All right. So you look at that ring there, ladies and gentlemen. The ring Paul Biya is wearing is very, well, I don't know whether it's Paul Biya, but I would rather say the ring the man is wearing is rather very, very conspicuous. Very conspicuous. And importantly, it appears positioned towards the outer finger of the right hand, or the little thumb of the last finger, rather than in the conventional position associated with the wedding hand or wedding ring. That is where this becomes quite interesting. That is where it becomes very interesting. Now, I'd like you to look at the other photographs I am about to show you here. These are photographs of Paul Biya taken on other occasions. Now, please take a look at these other images, ladies and gentlemen. Look at these images of Paul Biya taken on another occasion. When you look at those photographs, in the first 4 images, let's see if we can actually, please, Mr. Technician, zoom in to those images, please. Zoom in to those images. So that we can show them. Okay. Oh, wonderful. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you look at the first 4 images. Ignore the image on your right. Look at the first 4 images. When you look at those first 4 images, notice the jewelry on Paul Biya's hand, or the ring on Paul Biya's hand. Notice that the visible ring appears on his left hand. The visible ring on those 4 images appear on his left hand. Take a look at that. Look at image number 4. You see the ring on the left hand, on the wedding finger, as they call it. Look at image number 2. The ring again appear on the same finger on the left hand. You look at image number 1. The same image appear on the same finger. Now, again, do not forget that the ring in the limousine appears on the right hand. On the right hand. Now look at the right hand of Biya, or his right hand fingers in these images. Do you see any ring there? Look at this. Do you see any ring there? There is no ring on his right hand fingers in these old photographs. Look at both of his right hands in all the photographs. Look at that. No ring over there. Now, so the visible ring appears on his left hand, on the conventional ring finger, whatever its precise significance. That is consistent across those images. Now, I'd like you to take a look at photograph number 5. Now, this is photograph number 5. Remember, photograph number 5 is this image. Photograph number 5 is this image that you see there, ladies and gentlemen. We are trying to demystify the controversy surrounding this hand waving with a ring in that limousine. Was it Paul Biya or not? That is what we are trying to demystify right here. So look at that ring And then that ring again is on the little thumb finger on the right hand side. But then you look at these older photos, you see there is no ring on his right hand side. Both photographs, look at that one. The only ring he wears is on the left hand side and on the wedding finger, they call it. So you look at those photographs, number 5 again, that is number 5. You take a look at that, which is the finger from the limousine, ladies and gentlemen. The finger from the limousine, you see a ring, the mysterious hand. Compare them yourself. You compare this ring and the finger and the hand from the limousine to these ones. You see, this one is coming from his right hand side. It is one on the little thumb finger, on the smallest thumb finger of his right hand. But this one shows his right hand without any ring. Without any ring. So, the ring visible through the presidential car or presidential car window appears larger and is positioned differently. Again, it appears larger and it is positioned differently. Most importantly, it is on the right hand. I'm sure this is making sense to everybody. That ring is on the right hand. Does that prove that the hand belonged to somebody else? I cannot tell, ladies and gentlemen. I just cannot tell. Was it Paul Biya wearing that ring? Again, I cannot tell. I can only go with the evidence that we see from images emerging from that event. Now, a responsible analysis cannot make that leap from photographs alone. People change rings. They move jewelry between hands. Camera angles can deceive images. Camera angles can deceive. Images can distort finger positions. But after 74 days of presidential invisibility, the burden was hardly on Cameroonians to suppress their curiosity. It was on the presidency to eliminate the mystery. And it could have done so in 5 seconds. Just in 5 seconds. Of course, they did not. Now, roll down the window. That is what they would have done. Just roll down the window and let people have a glimpse of Mr. President. Let the president show his face. Instead, Cameroon got a hand. Cameroonians got a hand, a waving hand. And that brings us to Saturday's photographs. Now, Saturday's photographs are very consistent with these other photographs, ladies and gentlemen. Take another look at these images emerging from Saturday. You take a look at this. Can you take off the title there so people can see the hands of Paul Biya sitting at that event place? All right. So look at Saturday's image, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Biya is seated with Chantal on stage, and you look at Paul Biya's hands. You see the consistency of a wedding ring on the left hand, on the on the ring finger, and there is nothing on his right finger, on his right hand fingers. There is no ring there, nothing there, zero. Again, it only amplifies the question, who was it waving that hand? Was it Paul Biya or not Paul Biya? I want to show you other images here. Take a look at this one, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at this other image here. This was Paul Biya. I don't know what occasion was this. This is not certainly when he arrived last Saturday. But let me change that. Please change that. Give me the second image there. Give me the second image there. Okay. Take a look at this one, ladies and gentlemen. That was, again, Paul Biya. On another occasion, not necessarily when he arrived. That was on another occasion. You can see the ring consistently on his left hand. You can see the ring consistently on his left hand, on the wedding finger. Again, you can see that. Now, you can see Paul Biya here in this other image. He is with Ngo. You zoom in, you see that is Biya's right hand. Ngo is shaking Biya's right hand. Do you see a ring on that right hand? There is no ring there. Again, this was on a different occasion also. There is no ring on that right hand, not on any finger, as you can see there. Now you have also, I think there's another one here. Take a look at this one with Biya and Dion Ngute. Again, you see Biya's right hand, and of course, there is no ring. There is no ring. And again, remember, this is his right hand. The hand that was supposedly being waved in that presidential limousine last Saturday. There is no ring there. There is no ring there. Now, look at this image here, ladies and gentlemen. Look at Biya there. Again, you see the ring on his left hand. There is no ring on his right hand. What this says is consistent, that Biya is not in the habit. Biya is not in the habit of wearing rings on his right hand, ladies and gentlemen. Biya is not in the habit of wearing rings on his right hand. So we are stuck with this image here. Look at that. We are stuck with this image here. Who was it? Who was it? Was it actually Paul Biya? Was this actually Paul Biya? I think the images we have seen consistently attest to the fact that this was most likely not Paul Biya waving his hands to the public. At the Unity Palace, as you have seen at the reception, we can finally see Paul Biya clearly examine his right hand in the available images. Where is that conspicuous ring? Did he just happen to take out that ring only on that day, that Saturday, after arriving on Thursday? Of course not, because we have perused his former pictures and we do not see the ring. We do not see the ring we saw protruding out of that limousine. I don't see it. Do you see it? That still doesn't prove substitution. But it makes the discrepancy worthy of examination, particularly because of the extraordinary secrecy surrounding the president's return. And there is another possibility here. Perhaps that really was Paul Biya's hand. Perhaps it was actually Paul Biya's hand. But if so, why hide his face from the people? That is $1 million question. Why hide his face from the people? Could the president have been physically exhausted after the journey? Was he too frail at that moment for the prolonged public presentation his handlers wanted? Was a tightly controlled limousine appearance simply intended to provide the symbolism of a presidential wave without exposing the physical condition of the man himself? Those are questions, not established facts. And they matter because Saturday showed that Biya could appear publicly 2 days later. Yet, even that appearance was extraordinarily controlled, as normally they would do. According to the invitation for the Lioness's reception, mobile phones were prohibited even though I saw some seated in there actually videoing with their phone. But officially, mobile phones were prohibited inside Unity Palace. That meant guests could not independently photograph, record, or live stream what they were seeing there. The images available to the wider public, therefore, came through officially controlled channels, CRTV in particular, so no one can say the images emerging from that event are doctored or AI. No, they are not. Think about that for a moment. A president returns after the longest absence of his presidency amid enormous speculation about his health. The population waiting for him does not see his face. Think about that. 2 days later, he appears before footballers and the presidency. But personnel phones and cameras are prohibited. Why? Why? Security may be the official explanation, but politically, perception matters. The ceremony proved something important. Paul Biya is physically in Cameroon. That's what it proved. That's what the ceremony proved. Paul Biya is officially in Cameroon. No doubt, no controversy about that. What it did not necessarily establish, though, is how capable is he presently and capable of running the country and doing business unscripted. A prepared presidential appearance is one thing. A live news conference is another. Receiving footballers is one thing. Taking questions from journalists about 74 days in Geneva is another. Reading a prepared or carefully managed address is one thing also. Explaining to 30 million people where their president has been, what happened to him, and whether he remains physically capable of exercising the enormous powers concentrated in his office is something altogether different. And perhaps that is a larger story behind the handshake or the waving hand. For 43 years, the Biya presidency has developed an extraordinary relationship with mystery. Questions are rarely answered when silence will suffice. Absences generate speculation. Discussions emerge without explanation. Health becomes state secrecy, and ordinary Cameroonians are repeatedly left to reconstruct reality from fragments. So perhaps we will never know whose hand waved from that limousine. We may never know. Perhaps it was Paul Biya's own hand. Perhaps the apparent jewelry or ring discrepancy has an innocent explanation. Or perhaps there is considerably more to that strange presidential homecoming than Cameroonians have been told. But one thing is now beyond serious dispute. Paul Biya returned alive. He was seen on Saturday. The mystery is no longer whether he came home. The mystery is why, when Cameroon gathered to see him, to welcome him home, the presidency apparently decided that the only part of Paul Biya the country needed to see was his hand, a waving hand. And that is my talking point on this subject, ladies and gentlemen. You will form your own opinion after watching those images. So I will take a 50-second break out, and when I come back, I will take you to the main subject of the day. the problems that are stacked against Paul Biya, as he is certainly home. Please stay put. I'll be right back.
ABS can help you reach your target audience like never before. Advertising on ABS, you'll benefit from our extensive reach and dedicated viewership. We offer special advertising packages during primetime slots and popular shows. You'll also be featured on our social media platforms, reaching an even wider audience. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Take your business to the next level. Contact our advertising team at absafricatv@gmail.com. ABS can help you reach your target audience like never before. Advertising on ABS, you'll benefit from our extensive reach and dedicated viewership. We offer special advertising packages during primetime slots and popular shows. You'll also be featured on our social media platforms, reaching an even wider audience. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Take your business to the next level. Contact our advertising team at absafricatv@gmail.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I cannot emphasize this enough, even when we question what happened at Isimaland Airport. One thing is clear. One thing is clear as evidence last Saturday. Paul Biya is back into the country. And now I will bring you my talking point on this subject. And after I bring you my talking point, I will be joined by Professor J.J. Asungu and Ira Obenson, who will discuss this subject. I hope Sama Thomas also joins. But this is it. Paul Biya is maybe back in Cameroon. But the Cameroon he returned to is not the Cameroon he left on June 7. After 74 years abroad, the longest recorded absence of his 43-year presidency, the 93-year-old returned from Geneva on August 20 to cheering crowds, traditional dances, government officials, and the familiar choreography of presidential homecomings in La République du Cameroun. Yet behind the carefully staged reception sits an extraordinary pile of unfinished business. Reuters and the Associated Press report that his prolonged absence intensified questions about his health, his capacity to govern, and what happens when his era finally ends, and which could happen really soon. So Paul Biya may have returned home, but his problems never left. Let's consider a number of those problems right here. Number one, the fake decrees. Who was governing Cameroon in his absence? Perhaps nothing illustrates the danger of presidential absence more dramatically than the mysterious decrees that surfaced while Paul Biya was away. On June, two of you will all recall an individual arrived at CRTV carrying documents purporting to be presidential decrees. One appointing a vice president, and the other restructuring the government, creating a new cabinet. CRTV officials scrutinized them and determined that the documents were fraudulent. The government subsequently confirmed that a false presidential decree had indeed been presented to the state broadcaster CRTV. But then came the politically explosive part. Subsequent reporting linked the investigation to Oswald Baboke, Deputy Director of the Civil Cabinet, and a figure regarded as close to First Lady Chantal Biya. Other reports said Baboke's name appeared on the purported vice presidential decree. Reports claimed that the seal and signature on the decrees were genuine and that Chantal Biya was an accomplice to the operation. Baboke was questioned as investigators examined the affair. But as is always the case in Cameroon, the investigation seems to have died a natural death, or should I say, They have been waiting for Paul Biya to return. Separate reporting has described intense rivalry around the presidency and claims that Chantal Biya favored Baboke for the newly restored vice president position. But politically, the question remains devastating. How does someone walk into the national broadcaster carrying documents dressed up as presidential decrees and expect them to be announced? That is no longer simply a forgery story. It is a story about a foiled coup and the vulnerability of the Cameroonian state when its president disappears from public view. Now that he is back, my guess is that Cameroonians want to see what he does on this particular case, if indeed he still can make decisions. Number two, then there is the 10-year-old Ambazonia War, which cannot be waved away, ladies and gentlemen. Next month, the Ambazonia conflict enters its 10th year. What began in 2016 with protests over the marginalization of English-speaking lawyers and teachers developed into an armed independence conflict. It has taken the lives of well over 30,000 Southern Cameroonians and displaced close to 1 million others. The Pope's visit changed the diplomatic atmosphere. In Bamenda, Pope Leo explicitly addressed the conflict and called for peace, reconciliation, and respect for fundamental human rights. Ambazonians even declared a temporary ceasefire surrounding the Pope's visit. That makes the Vatican dimension impossible for Yaoundé simply to brush aside or wave away. Just before departing for Geneva, we have learned that the Pope officially wrote to the presidency volunteering the Vatican's mediation between Cameroon and Ambazonia. Yaoundé deferred a substantive response pending Biya's return from Geneva. So now that he is back, what will the response be? The question is unavoidable because the war rages on. After almost a decade of funerals, burned communities, soldiers killed, Ambazonia fighters killed, children displaced, and families scattered across continents, surely the regime in Yaoundé cannot enter another decade believing that military force alone constitutes policy. It doesn't. Number three is the question of who actually governs. It also starts against Biya. For more than 10 weeks, 74 days, the country had a president who was largely unseen and unheard. Opposition politicians even asked the Constitutional Council to consider whether interim arrangements were necessary. At 93, Biya's physical frailty makes the question of delegated executive authority an emergency rather than an academic discussion. A state of nearly 30 million people cannot be constructed around the assumption that one elderly man must personally remain functional for government to function. Cameroon has ministers who have occupied powerful positions for decades. Some, ladies and gentlemen, again for decades. Speculation about cabinet reshuffles has become almost a national ritual. But after an absence that exposed extraordinary uncertainty inside the state, Biya must now decide whether to reorganize his government, redistribute authority, and demonstrate that he still controls the machinery around him. Because if he cannot reshuffle his government, The increasingly uncomfortable question becomes whether the government has already begun reshuffling itself around him. And then, question number 5, that is tagged, or problem number 5, tagged against him. The revelations of Captain Effoudou, which opened a Pandora's box. There is former Captain Colonel Ronald Effoudou Awusi. Effoudou is not merely another government critic. He previously headed an intelligence office within the president's special military staff. From exile, he emerged publicly in July with extraordinary accusations about what he says happens inside the presidential palace. Among his most explosive allegations were claims involving senior presidential officials, interference with peace initiatives over the Ambazonia War, and the 2019 fire that devastated Sonara, the national oil refinery. Effoudou alleged that powerful interests benefited from the subsequent importation of refined petroleum products, which is the reason Sonara remains unelevated since the fire incident. One person implicated in Effoudou's wider accusations has publicly denied them and initiated legal action in France. But silence from a 2D will not make the questions disappear. If Effoudou is lying, investigate him and establish it. If there is evidence behind his allegations, investigate those he has named. The worst response is pretending nobody ever heard him. And then the last point, the succession question. Maybe with the exception of the Ambazonian conflict, the most important here. This is a question sitting above every other question. Again, maybe with the exception of Ambazonia. In April, you will recall, Cameroon amended its constitution to restore the office of vice president. The vice president is appointed by the president and would take over power upon the president's death, resignation, or incapacity. Yet Biya has returned without having appointed one. That vacuum is dangerous precisely because everybody knows why the office was recreated. Succession is no longer tomorrow's problem. It is today's problem. Biya is 93. He has ruled since 1982. His latest absence showed Cameroon what uncertainty looks like when a political system built overwhelmingly around one man, one individual, suddenly cannot see that individual. So perhaps the dancers at Insimilan Airport were celebrating the wrong thing. The important question was never simply whether Paul Biya would return. It was never about that. The question is whether Paul Biya has returned capable of confronting what was waiting for him. The fake decrees are waiting. Ambazonia is waiting. The Vatican is waiting. A cabinet reshuffle is waiting. Captain Effoudou's allegations or revelations are also waiting. And above all, everything else, succession is waiting. For 43 years, Paul Biya mastered the politics of postponement. Problems could be ignored, opponents exhausted, crises allowed to linger, and decisions deferred until circumstances change. But there is one adversary. Even the most patient politician cannot wait. That one adversary is time. Time. And this time returned to Yaoundé before Paul Biya did. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my talking point on this subject. Again, I am being joined by Professor J.J. Asongu and Ari Obenson. I will start with Ari Obenson, who is joining this show for the very first time. Ari Obenson is a visionary leader, lawyer and global change maker dedicated to empowering young people and communities worldwide. A former Secretary General of Junior Chamber International and former CEO of the International Institute of St. Louis. He now leads Transformunity, a global consulting firm. Ari, it's a pleasure to have you here, sir. I don't think you have your microphone turned on. Your microphone is not turned on. Okay, yeah. There you go.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, great to have you. Great to have you. Let me see. JJ is around. JJ, if you can bend your camera slightly, please. Oh, that is good. That is good. That is good. JJ, good to have you back here, sir.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I know you guys have been waiting for a while. I had an incident here in the studio where getting ready to get on the mic, get behind the microphone, I discovered I had no shirt. I don't dress from home to come here. I dress in the studio. So I took all my shirts for laundry and then I forgot them home. When I was about going live, I realized I don't have a shirt. I had to drive home to get one. But once more, thank you for joining me and for being patient out there. Let me start with Obenson. So, again, it's a great pleasure to have you here. You are one of the great humanitarians out there, and I am sure you are very much concerned with what you see on the ground in Cameroon, talking about all the problems that I have listed here. They are stacked against Paul Biya. Do you see, of all the problems I have listed, the most important, the Ambazonian conflict, because it changes the trajectory in that country politically, economically, socially, every way you can think of. And then the succession, because you look at Biya, Biya is weak and frail, and I suppose that is one of the reasons they couldn't show him at the airport, because he couldn't walk. He stepped out of the plane, stood where John Ngute and Gongo were, shook hands with them, entered the limousine, and took off, and the population did not see him. So, but he is returning home against all these problems. Do you hope that he begins to tackle this, or do you think he is capable of tackling these problems that I have listed here?
First, I would say that we've waited 43 years, and those problems, some of those problems that you're talking about, should have been tackled a long time ago. And it's not one more year or one more week or another return back to Cameroon that I think is going to make the difference. As we talk about these problems, it could be lost in the grand scheme of things. But I want us to think as Cameroonians that today there's probably a child that's going to go to bed in Cameroon without food. A pregnant woman is probably going to die in a hospital, lack of medication and treatment, or, see images of people dying on our highways because of the bad quality of the road infrastructure. We can be carried away by the presence or absence, as it may be, of one man, President Paul Biya, and forget practically that we have people languishing in jail for no reason than just an expression of their political opinion. We could be carried away by the hand of whoever that is, and we forget so many things that are happening to our fellow brothers. 30 million Cameroonians are subjected to what they do not deserve, because we have a country that has the capability, that has the potential of being one of Africa's most prosperous. And unfortunately, we find ourselves in the circumstances. So no, I do not expect, neither do I have any hopes that President Paul Biya's presence or absence makes any difference for Cameroonians. In essence, Cameroonians have been left to fend for themselves. We have to absolutely take our destiny into our own hands. And it begins by us walking in the shoes of one another, begins by us sharing a common vision for the kind of country that we want, the kind of neighbors that we want to be, the kind of environment that we want to see, the kind of infrastructure that we want to develop. That, in essence, is the biggest obstacle that I see for Cameroon, because we are so carried away by the presence or absence of one man that it essentially stifles our initiative to think beyond President Paul Biya.
Well, we will get to there. Let me bring in Prof. JJ here. Prof. JJ Asungu is a philosopher, theologian, psychologist, author, and founder of St. Monica University. His writings explore liberation, political identity, justice, and self-determination, with particular focus on the southern Cameroons conflict. JJ, it's a pleasure again to have you back, sir.
Thank you.
So you listened to my talking point there, and I listed all those problems stacked against Paul Biya. Do you have any hope that him returning now has the ability to tackle those problems?
Yeah, as the previous speaker said, no, I have no hope. And actually, I don't think that he has the ability to make the change. So even if I wanted to be unrealistically positive, it would just be a pipe dream, because that is not possible. One of the problems, personally, I don't consider myself a Cameroonian because I am not. I bear a different country's passport, and I take those things seriously.
So which country do you belong to?
I'm a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
But yes, I am. That's the only country that I have a passport from. But I was born in Ambazonia, and as we know, Ambazonia, former southern Cameroons, is effectively being colonized by La République du Cameroon. So my only interest in Cameroonian politics is in the fact that whether or not we agree, the reality is that we are being controlled by La République du Cameroon, and that is the only reason I'm even interested in that country's affairs. That said, I was one of the people who was very much in support of the Pope's visit. And even though I don't know the intricacies, but I wrote a letter send them through various channels to the Vatican, arguing and reminding the Pope that right from the time of Pope John Paul II, when he came to Cameroon, he asked that the Ambazonian case, or the Southern Cameroons case, or whatever you call it, that it should be addressed. I reminded Pope Leo that when he came into power, he offered to address the situation between Russia and
Ukraine.
Ukraine, thank you, sorry. He offered to do that. And I argued that the church has a duty, a responsibility to intervene, and I urged him to intervene. And before Francis died, Pope Francis, I understood that he was trying to make an effort to negotiate, and that is why when he died, I personally went for his funeral in gratitude for that, even though nothing came out. But I did those. That said, I think for me, as an individual and speaking on behalf of my people, that is the most urgent problem that the country faces. And I can only hope. I don't think that there is any chance that he's going to address it. But I can only hope, if I have to, that the next person who comes after him recognizes the gravity of the problem and decides to solve it by engaging in true, genuine negotiation, dialogue, and not by imposing the will of one side on the other. And that is why I wrote a book. I've written a book entitled Force Unity. Yep, we may be united, or the Republic and this thing, but one party is forced to be in that unity.
So somebody has written, I read it somewhere, I don't know where it was, but it was today. I think it was written against one of the shows that I did, and somebody said, the person taking over from Biya, as you suggest, change, may just continue where he stopped, because apparently that person will not be elected by anybody. It will just be an appointment. Do you have any hopes that a new person coming in effect any change?
I don't know who. Okay, since I've started talking, let me just go ahead. So, basically, no, because I think the so-called April constitutional change is probably the worst thing that happened. In my opinion, it's the worst. Why do I say it's the worst? Because it says that the successor would be a vice president, and it allows the president to handpick the vice president, which means that the president is basically deciding who would be the next president, which is in itself clearly undemocratic. That's the way I see. So it is worse. It was probably better that we kept the old structure, which suggested that the speaker of the assembly or the Senate. Again, we know all those institutions are hardly democratic, but that would have even been better than now replacing it with the possibility that he's going to pick one person. And from what I seem to understand, there are about 4 possible routes that he will follow. That he will probably appoint a trusted CPDM figure as vice president. The advantage of that may just be institutional continuity, but the problem is we will just continue through the very failed path. The second case, which I think is probably the worst, worse than even that, is him appointing Frank Biya. And why I said it is worse, I don't know the guy personally, but it's worse because it would now institutionalize some sort of a hereditary, make the presidency be more stuff, and it will create a dynasty, which in my view would be illegitimate, but I wonder what is even illegitimate in the country. The third option probably is appointing a younger person as a compromise figure. But again, I can see the old guards opposed to that. And the fourth option, which I think maybe that's what he would do, is to just leave the position vacant and let the people sort it out after he's dead.
So let me come in there to Array. Array, you know, he was in Europe, and we all know signing all these decrees, changing or promoting military generals, making new appointments. And the question many people asked was, if Biya can appoint or promote military generals, make all these changes from his bed in Geneva, why can't he appoint a vice president from Geneva, just in the same way he made all these promotions? What would you say is going on, or was going on in his mind to not appointing a vice president? Because, you know, possibly if he had appointed one, why in Geneva, people will say, okay, the man is actually working. He has actually appointed the vice president as spelled out by the April constitutional revision, but he did not do that. What would you think may be going on within his mind? Could this be just the divisions we know are within the camps?
So let me start by calling the constitutional amendment that took place on Easter weekend. Historically, that should be known as the Easter Massacre, because essentially that was what it was. It essentially buried the Cameroonian people and buried whatever is left of the constitution of our country, Cameroon. You do not amend the constitution in a weekend, and you create the position of a vice president, but it leaves a lot of other ramifications to be satisfied. There's still the position of the president of the Senate. There's still the position of the speaker, the president of the Economic and Social Council, the prime minister. All of those are in line of succession, but all of those have a certain number of days within which they have to call for an election, 120 days. But in the case of the vice president, it doesn't, which means that the mandate which was given to Biya, 7 years, can be passed on to another individual who was not elected by the people, who didn't demand election by the people. Now, what is incredibly important is that there is a reason why there could be, and all of this is speculation. We have been reduced as a country to speculate on what the destiny of our country is. The speculation could be immediately Biya appoints a vice president. That's the end of his presidency. Why? Because currently, I do not think that whilst he may have the competence, may have the legal capacity, he doesn't have the competence to lead, right? Because he has to largely depend on the people around him. And the people around him are essentially representing themselves against Biya's interest and that of the country. So, and I'm not saying this to exonerate Biya from anything. He is responsible for the country but there's a reason why he has not appointed that vice president position. Because once that happens, he is essentially delegating authority to that person. Who knows what happens to the Secretary General position that is now so strong and so powerful? But once you have a vice president, what happens to that position? What happens to the occupant of that position? Does the vice president now want to intercede between the president and the Secretary General to determine how the country is run? There are so many, it opens us to a lot more speculation. That could be the biggest challenge that President Paul Biya faces if it's a man who takes on challenges for his country. But to have mobilized the country to amend its constitution in one weekend, and then to go for all these months with no action with reference to that. And even more troubling is that Since October, this man was elected president since the 6th of November, he had the ability to appoint a cabinet, and he has not been able to. So there's a lot more going on. And for me, we Cameroonians have to liberate ourselves from the Biya question to the post Biya question, not in terms of who succeeds him, because succession is going to be based on what the same old group or gang of people have in mind, stay in power as much as they can. But there's 30 other million Cameroonians that must not wait for that succession plan to be put in place for them to have no other option. But they have to begin to think about it now. This is why, I don't know, I didn't mention this earlier. I'm a co-founder of an organization called Project C. And Project C is essentially Project Cameroon. It's incredibly important for Cameroonians to begin to take their destiny into their own hands. And there is nothing that can stop them from doing that if we can just come together and have a common vision about the kind of future that we have for Cameroon. It is the influence, it is advocacy, it is bonding together, it is putting the country's interest above the interest of one individual and his henchmen that we can be able to change the narrative. So Biya is incapable at this point of naming a vice president and possibly even naming a cabinet.
Oh, JJ, let me turn to you on one particular, actually two allegations that this guy, Captain Effoudou, has made in the revelations he put out through a TV interview. As you recall, Captain Effoudou was one of those embedded inside the security apparatus of the presidency. He has said the burning down of Sonora was deliberate, and it was meant for the reason of having Ngongo and his clique to have refined oil imported so Sonora stays aside and they can make money from that angle. We also know from him that negotiations between Cameroon and Ambazonia stalled because same interests in a 2D made it to happen. If you were Paul Biya, or let's just assume you are not Paul Biya, you are the vice president who is taking over from Paul Biya, how would you address these issues?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's an impossibility for me, but from a merely theoretical perspective, let me take it a little notch higher. For me, the problems of Africa and the problem of underdevelopment is is what I've described elsewhere as an epistemic fracture. And what do I mean by epistemic fracture? Epistemology just has to do with knowledge. And the problems of Africa, in my opinion, are a knowledge problem. And this epistemic fracture, unfortunately, dates over 2,000 years ago. And why do I say so? Allow me to be a little philosophical here. Why do I say so? If you see, Africa is usually described as the cradle of human civilization. Architecture, mathematics, even some levels, initial urban planning. lots of things started in Africa. And for years, I used to ask myself that if this was true, then why did Africa uh, uh, decline from being the leader, the thought leader, to becoming where it is, which is at the bottom of the Human Development Index? For years, I thought I was wondering about that. I read and followed other suggestions, like they said, oh, it was colonialism, it was slavery. But my argument has been that all those problems, slavery, colonialism, were a consequence of Africa's failure, because if Africa was not weak, they would not have been colonized. If it was not weak, they would never have been enslaved. Why am I saying this? To answer your question. So the question is that what caused the weakness? What caused weakness in Africa was that, in my theory, is that after the initial successes in science and technology, instead of Africans continuing to better those, to challenge existing systems and to learn and to continue to improve, continuous improvement. Instead of doing that, they sacralized knowledge. They now, like if you look in Africa, the greatest values are respect, they are obedience. Why these are not bad things in themselves, but in terms of a country and progress, those are not really good qualities. Good qualities is when people are critical minded and all that. So my solution is that we really need to encourage critical thinking, encourage change, and therefore, for us to bring about any meaningful change, we need to go back and to the
Don't you
drawing
think
board
that,
and really.
I'm sorry if I may stop you a little bit there, don't you think that the problem in Cameroon is that of lack of leadership and fear? The people have been so traumatized and crushed for 43 years. Then if you can add the Ahijo's years, they go up to over 50 years. The people are afraid. So when you talk about activism and education, I think the people are educated. They just don't have leaders. You have the October elections where opposition leaders who contested for the elections went and collected money from the regime, remained quiet. Issa Chiroma, the one said to have won the elections, ran with his life. He is in exile. The people, the masses are on the ground. They don't have a leader. If they are not on exile, they are in jail. So it appears to me like unless the powers that be are ready to empower the people really don't have a choice. They just continue with the posterity.
Yes, but remember, you asked that if I was the vice president, so I assume that if I was in that theoretical case, then I have the power to implement that, and that is why I went to identify what I see as the failure of Africa, and then to say that we need to empower people with knowledge, give people courage. Yes, and as you rightly say, fear is one of the most crippling, the most crippling problems that we have in the country. Yeah. So if I was not, what do we do? I think maybe go to what Mr. Ray was talking about, like building coalitions, like different viewpoints, bring them together, people who are interested in resolving this, and we come together and we try to move the ball forward. But without that, I don't think any I don't think just having an election or having anybody succeed Biya is going to make any difference, because the closest candidates are his acolytes, people who believe in that, would have seen him succeeded by ruling for 40-something years, so they will simply want to do the same. They will think that it's their turn, and then they will do the same.
When you talk, when you quote Array, I think you and I will disagree with him, because I heard you address yourself as Ambazonian. I address myself as an Ambazonian. We are discussing Cameroon because we know that whatever happens in Cameroon affects all of us. And so sometimes you have to agree to kill the enemy.
No, well, I was saying that his view, because he talked about people coming together, different viewpoints, which is what should be. Different people come together with different viewpoints, and they come together to resolve, to agree on the way forward. And what we have to realize is that, which even us, I think those of us who were on the Ambazonian side, I think one thing that we failed to do is that people come into things thinking that they have the solution, and they are unwilling to compromise, to listen to other voices. There is nobody, there is no human institution that is so perfect, that is so righteous. In fact, if I may sound theological, because I'm also theologian, I think God is the only, Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So God is the only truth, is the only light. God is the only person who has that infinite wisdom. Each and every one of us is limited. And so our solutions we must always be humble when we come to solutions, and not bring the solutions and say, okay, this is it, and there is no other way. No, come there, be humble to listen to other solutions, and sometimes, and be practical. Sometimes it is not the best solution that succeeds. It is not the best solution that succeeds. It is like I've heard somebody say, nothing succeeds better than success. So, like, it is the solution that will work that is most important, not the one that you think is that makes the most intellectual sense, or which is the most pure. And for me, the way I've developed philosophically is even that you cannot know truth for certain. So you are always open to correction. So let's approach the world with that. So if we were to, if I were to advise anybody interested in Cameroon politics, I'll be like, yeah, go sit down, listen to different voices. Let's try put things together and agree on what would work. Just like we as Ambazonians too, we agree that we have a goal which should be the liberation of our people. But then, how do we do that? And again, I just think that let's not have purity, a purity test.
Well, that is a little confusing, because you left me wondering where your legs are standing. Are they standing on one Cameroon, a federal Cameroon, an independent southern Cameroon? You left me wondering there. But let me get to Array. I know you said you belong to what is it again? Your
Project
group?
C.
Project C. Yeah, right. I'm very familiar with it, with Eric Chinje and stuff. How does Project C accommodate the Southern Cameroons in the way it looks at the future of one Cameroon?
Yes. So let me put it this way: even a bad marriage ends up in a divorce. And what we don't know, a divorce is actually a negotiated settlement, right? Yeah. So, and that's why there is a process through which you go through. Before I just come to your question, I would say if I were vice president of Cameroon today, if I were given the opportunity, of course, this is totally hypothetical, but there's 5 things that I would do to resolve the Anglophone crisis, because it has to be. If this country must survive, if there's a territory known as Cameroon or the Cameroons or whatever you want to call it, it must go through a process of dialogue. There is, whether the same regime continues for the next 20 years, there will be a time when dialogue has to prevail. And that dialogue will be the end of whatever ensues. So why wait? Why not go into it now? It would be, first, liberate the people, grant amnesty to the people who are in detention, because those are the people that you would negotiate with. That's the first thing to do. 2, create the opportunity for the Anglophone Cameroonians to discuss their future, their destiny. 3, begin a constitutional process, a constitutional reform process for Cameroon, whatever that will constitute, because you have given the opportunity for the Anglophone population to determine what destiny that they want. And it's important that that happens, because for many of those who are having a conversation about the kind of Cameroon that they want, they are looking at it from the rear view mirror, meaning that it's the nostalgic past that they have in mind. But there is a vibrant, youthful Anglophone population that is the future. How do their thoughts, their contributions come into question? We have to factor that in. And then the third one is, you have to go through a referendum that will culminate in the Cameroon that we want. That will be the simple 5-step process that we have to put in place to determine whatever outcome. Note that I have not prejudged the outcome that Cameroonians will want, because it has to be Cameroonians. It cannot be me or any one of us determining that this is what we want. Give the opportunity, especially to the vibrant, youthful population that knows of a Cameroon from a different perspective, to determine what that future. And it's in that context that we see, from the Project C perspective, is that we as a country have gone through 65 years of transformation. That transformation has to be taken into consideration, even as we respect our very origins as a state, or as 2 states that came together. We must evolve. We must look at building a future that is very different from the past. The glorious days of yesterday will not come back, because our prosperity as a people lies ahead. And for many of us that are making the sacrifice today, we must be prepared not to walk into that future that we aspire for, because that future is not ours, it's theirs. It's the next generation.
If I may ask you please. Yes, I agree that Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians should choose what they want, should decide their fate. And I also agree on the idea of a referendum. I think I originated that idea, actually. But you will agree with me that you cannot just talk about it. Project C would have to develop a white paper that they bring to table and say, this is what we are thinking. What are you thinking? So my question would be, when Project C is talking about the people deciding, Southern Cameroonians deciding, a referendum involved, what are you as individual leaders of Project C thinking about that referendum? Is it a referendum for, do we go back to 1961, or do we stay as 10 states, or do we or you want to be independent? I mean, I want to get, because at least you must have some ideas that you bring to the table before the people say, no, well, we appreciate you, but this is what we want. What is it that Project C is bringing to the table in that perspective?
Yeah, I think the first thing we do is redefine who we are as a country. That has never been done since we had independence. And I think that's the starting point. Too often, so much of the conversation has been about the form of state, but very little conversation about the kind of state, the kind of country that we want. Because that kind of country even affects what happens on either side of the Mongo. What
So
kind
what
of
kind
country?
of country?
Yep. Let's talk about that kind of country.
Yeah.
Because if we think about Cameroon and you think about its motto, peace, work, fatherland, how many people even remember it? What does that even mean? Right? We have to redefine the kind of country that we want. And I look at this concept of Project C, which you can call Project Cameroon. Take Cameroon as a project. Our destinies has brought us to this land that has been called Cameroon. What kind of country do we want? When I say what kind of country do we want, essentially we are a fabrication of our colonial past. Everything, all the arguments that we've made about what we want has been inspired by our colonial past. But very little argument has been made about what inspires me to have you as my neighbor. What inspires us to want to live together? What does justice mean for us? Equity, fairness. What is it that we would want? What kind of country do we want to be? The reason this is incredibly important is because every other question can be answered from the vision that is created. But if you do not have that very foundation of the kind of country that you want, you could have a federation, you could have a confederation, but you still have the same mindset. And it is not for lack of structure, it is for lack of mindset that I think that we are enveloped in the quagmire that we find ourselves.
So again, we come back to the question. Federalists are saying we want federation. Independentists say we want a free and independent Southern Cameroons. What is Project C putting out?
We are saying if you know, we have a process that we're working towards. We've actually put out surveys that we're asking people to take, and people are taking the surveys.
What are they suggesting? What are the people suggesting?
Well, in 98% of the people taking the surveys say, for example, the Anglophone crisis has to be resolved through dialogue, right? 90% of the people who are talking the surveys are saying.
But that is not new, though. We all agree, as a protagonist sitting here, I agree every conflict ends on the dialogue table. The question is, what do you bring to that dialogue table?
Well, let me say for that. The surveys actually tell us something that's incredibly important. That asks both Anglophones and Francophones ask the question: what is the biggest challenge? What is the one thing that will make Cameroon prosperous? The response was not peace, not unity. The number one, both Anglophones and Francophones, was justice. Why is that important? That's the kind of country that people want. And you have to begin from that to be able to get to this. And I'll tell you, you can say you want federation, right?
But
federation doesn't guarantee.
I'm sorry. My problem is that when we ask questions specifically about the Southern Cameroons or Ambazonia, we generalize the answers to include Francophones. But if it's Anglophones who are out at war here, how do you address Anglophones in your terminology, without having to drag Francophones into this?
Well, if you followed my previous conversation, I actually addressed the Anglophone issue in a way that was specific. Those 5 points that I gave was actually addressing the Anglophone issues. Let me.
You talk about justice, but then you bring in Francophones.
Yes, because our surveys has specifically Anglophones and Francophones, and there is no way that we believe. Let me walk in the shoes of an Anglophone, because I'm an Anglophone, no doubt. Let me walk in the shoes of an Anglophone. But it would be utopic for me to think that you would have an Anglophone independence without having to negotiate with the other partner. It's impossible. This should be the very base. I mean, in fact, if you're going to create a country, one of the aspects of the country is going to be diplomacy, right?
Yeah.
You have to elevate yourself to that level that you have to sit down at the table even with your worst enemy, right? But also, I really want for our people to think about this, that we have gone through 65 years of evolution as a country. That the mindset that we think that we have of what West Cameroon used to be, that mindset has evolved. And anything else is nostalgia. And this is why I will not impose my will on the kind of future that Cameroonians want. I will create the opportunity for Cameroonians to express themselves, to have a conversation and determine what that kind of future will be. Now, if that future is two separate Cameroons, so be it. But if that future also is a united Cameroon, why don't we all work towards it with the goal that the purpose is not just having a territory that we call ours. The purpose is ensuring that every child that is born has access to good quality education, to drinking water, justice, equity. Those are the things that too often I miss in the conversation about the future.
Can we do that as two separate countries, Are? I mean, have
Of
good
course,
education
I
on the
said
other
that.
side, good education on the other side. I mean, who is against that?
So be it, but let that be an expression of create the opportunity for people to express themselves, for us to dialogue our way through it, for us to find a solution at the end of the day. In fact, if we had the answer, if it was this easy, if we had a silver bullet, we would not be spending so much words and time and energy. But because we don't, we have to discuss it. We have to work together. We have to listen to other people. We have to open our minds.
I totally agree with you,
Yeah.
but let me get to JJ. JJ, if you
Yes,
were
can I-
making a suggestion for
JJ
a
has been
particular
yearning to
direction,
say something.
wouldn't you bring something to the table and say, hey, these are my suggestions. What are yours? Let's deliberate about it. Now, this is important because when you hear from people who want one and indivisible Cameroon, they go round and round and round. There are hardly specifics. So, JJ, if you wanted to resolve these problems, consider their referendum, for example. I like the idea of a referendum. But if I'm going for a referendum, I will come with some ideas, right?
Yeah, well, the point is that first of all, we find ourselves where we are. We have to recognize that Ambazonians are a minority, and every time you bring a minority issue to be decided by the larger group, the minority view is going to lose because they cannot win, even if 100% of Southern Cameroonians voted for independence and only 50% of La République du Cameroun voted for unity. They would say the majority. So I think our future is in our hands. We as Ambazonians, our future should be in our hands. But I agree on the idea of referendum, but not a referendum with francophones, a referendum amongst ourselves. And I do agree with you, Mr. Array, that not necessarily that things have changed. Yes, things have. I mean, everything changes. The only constant they say in life is change, and I agree with that. Yeah, things have changed, but also we've seen the betrayal of La République. We've seen that. I mean, we went there with trust and hope, and that trust and hope was dashed and crushed. And so for me, I actually led the group called the Alliance what is it? Yeah, I mean, I led an alliance that we were trying to lead towards negotiating with Cameroon. But my point is that yes, a solution would end up coming from as a result of dialogue. But the decision as to our future cannot be put into the hands of La République du Cameroun because they don't they don't have the same experience as we do. They are a majority, and so they look at things from that dominant perspective. I have friends that we went to the same school, but who were ethnically francophone. I mean, I know that it's contradictory. I mean, like they came from La République. Let me put it like that. But these guys went to English schools. When this issue came up, you see, like, I remember somebody saying that, oh, no, we cannot separate because the two people, they are intermarried. I asked him, like, okay, I have members of my family who are married to Nigerians, and I have some who are married to US to the US citizens. So because of that, does Cameroon and Nigeria become one country? And does Cameroon, Nigeria, and the US become one country just because people are intermarried? My point is, yes, at the end of the day, yeah, all those considerations will come into place, but our future should be in our hands, and we should not prejudge what people would take. I agree with you completely, but my point is that we make our argument and we come for a negotiation. For example, like my suggestion that I sent even to the Pope was that we come together. They should open up the venue and let the two sides come and negotiate. And whatever solution or decision is taken, the two sides should be committed to that. And I'm not prejudging these things. So I'm not one who calls people federalist or yeah. I mean they are. I know that people who are for one Cameroon, that people are federalists. But my point is, at the end of the day, whatever solution the majority of Anglophones or the majority of Southern Cameroons wants, that should be it. And if you are not happy with the solution, so be it. I mean, even in elections, people lose elections and and they still stay in the same country. Or if you are angry enough, you leave the country, like I left Cameroon. So, yeah.
So, JJ, if I may ask you, I think that is where we may differ a little bit, because I can tell that your concept of mediation is one way you bring every Cameroonian.
No, I said no. No, you just mistake. I said that that it should be the decision. We should be the ones to decide on our future, whether we want to be part of Cameroon or not.
Okay.
But we cannot do that. We cannot unilaterally declare independence, which we did, and we failed. We have to agree we failed. So
I don't agree that we have failed. The battle is still raging. Yeah.
Well, if we did not, we would be called Republic of Ambazonia today. So
well, I mean, I think you are, to say that is to rush, is to rush to conclusions. Tell me which single independence war has ended in 10 years with independence.
Well, it doesn't mean that we follow the same. I mean, when this thing started, I remember I went to some meetings and I told them that Southern Sudan took 30-something years, Eritrea took so many years, but it doesn't mean that we have to repeat the things. That's why you learn from history. But yes, but the other thing is that there was a time when, for example, when the struggle started, when there was like every community came out to support it. Now you have to agree, whether you agree or not. I know it as a fact that there are many communities now that there are many people there who are tired and they think that we've betrayed them. I mean,
no. I would disagree with you there for this reason. You got to realize some things here. Number one, when we went into this conflict, I'm sure all of you, including Array, supported this cause from day number one. But You will agree with me. Many people were thinking 3 months, 6 months, highest 1 year. This thing should be over. Many people did not go in prepared to go for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And as human nature is, fatigue begins to develop when it goes on and on and on. And being a war situation that is bound to be pain, suffering, deaths, destruction, just as we have seen. And so it naturally turns off people, not because they don't want what you or we are fighting for, but because they wonder, for how long do I continue to suffer? It is not because they don't want the liberation. So you may be right with that, but I think it is explained from this angle. I'm telling you, the overwhelming majority of the people that call me from the ground say, listen, you people cannot go this far and then surrender. We know there is pain here, we know there is suffering here, but what are we returning back to? So the support is there. It's just the psychology, the fatigue, but they are determined to regain their freedoms. This is the area. But let us talk about the Vatican coming in here. I mentioned in my monologue that we got information that before Biya left for the Vatican, before Biya left for Geneva, the Vatican had written officially offering its mediation services to mediate between Ambazonia and Cameroon. And Biya took the opportunity of his travel and said, all right, when I come back, I will respond to the invitation. Now he is back. When the Vatican comes negotiating, this question goes to Are. Do you see the Vatican saying, let Francophones and Anglophones, as I would like to call it, come together, sit on the table and talk? Or this would be a settlement between Southern Cameroonians and the regime in Yaoundé? I don't know whether I paint that picture clear enough, but I am looking at a situation where we have to understand there are warring parties in this conflict. Only two warring parties. If you are a federalist, you are one Cameroonais, you are Cameroonian. If you are Southern Cameroon or independentist, you are Ambazonian. Those are the two parties within which the conflict is raging. So, when the Vatican shows up and says, I want to mediate, does Project C sees itself coming on board? And if so, on whose side?
So I would say that if the Vatican is looking to mediate between the crisis in Cameroon, the Vatican has written to the government of Cameroon, right? Yeah. So the Vatican is coming to mediate between the government of Cameroon and obviously the other warring faction, which in this case, the separatists, right? Or the Amazon or independents, whatever you want, whatever is correct to be used in this context. It's not going to be a mediation between two states as it may be. It will be a mediation within one country, but with opposing perspectives of what the future of the country has to be. That would be the logical step.
I agree with you. Absolutely. That's logical.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Then going forward, again, I'm still saying that it's incredibly important for us to listen to the process that we put in place. Strategy is everything in negotiations. If you have the right strategy from the onset, you could drag the negotiation in your direction. The problem we have had in Cameroon is the lack of strategy, where we are not thinking beyond today. And this is a clarion call that I'm making to every, whether it's Ambazonian or Cameroonian, we have to think 3 steps after the decision that we make to be able to get the right strategy for our people and our country. When I say strategy, we've had an opportunity of dialogue before, right? In 2019, there was a dialogue which President Biya convened. What happened? We all rushed into the dialogue without strategy. And that's incredibly important. Even as we talk about mediation, we can talk about mediation, but this is the time to have the right strategy. What will the right strategy be? That strategy cannot only be we want independence. When you're going into a negotiation, you have to put the cards on the table and say, I'm prepared to give this to be able to obtain this. What am I going to lose in this process for me to be able to achieve a particular outcome? And I think, again, I say this because I don't hear those conversations. We're so stuck with the outcome without thinking about how that process is going to look like and how you
But
bring people along. Because
But, Harry,
yes, yes,
please know that
yeah,
there are certain things that cannot be let out of the bag before you get to
okay,
the table. As a
of
strategist,
course,
yeah, as a
of course,
strategist, you
but
want to figure out, okay, this is my plan A, my plan B, my plan C. If you
yeah,
start selling it now before you get to the table, you are
no,
giving, you are
but
feeding your enemy with weapons.
no, but once you have your strategy, there are things that you can expose. And I'll use an example. Who comes to negotiate? Who negotiates on behalf of who? Where does this negotiation take place? How does it take place? You have those are preliminaries. You don't go to a national dialogue, for example, because you're invited to a national dialogue.
But I think, JJ, I'm sure you know about this. We have made this clear from day number one. We want, I mean, we have listed all those things you're talking about. We want a free and neutral environment where the security of participants can be ensured. That is why you had Switzerland, you had Canada. We have said we want a neutral facilitator, like maybe the Vatican coming in to say, we are offering you our services. We've said that from day number one. As to who goes to represent you, again, those are some of the things you cannot let out of the bag until the moment comes, because you don't know who. La République du Cameroon being very good at buying people, you don't know who they're going to go behind and put. So
Yeah,
there are certain things you keep behind you.
that,
Yes,
yeah,
JJ.
yeah. I just want to. I know it may sound a little digression, but hopefully you see why it's important here. Um, I've written an article is about this, and it's about the missed role that the churches mixed in the when this struggle started. First of all, if the churches, let me talk about the main churches: Baptists, Presbyterians, Catholics, and Muslims. When this struggle started, the masses had their voice. They were clear in what they needed, but the leaders of the of all these religious groups and denominations, they failed the masses by not identifying with the masses. I've asked the question, even to some clergy people, that take, for instance, if this thing started and the 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 Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province, their mini conference, their conference, if they had declared on behalf of the people and went to the Vatican and told them that our people are suffering, we have been marginalized, not just marginalized, this is what we are suffering in Cameroon. My people don't want to be. Maybe the Vatican would have come in earlier if the Presbyterians and the Baptists had gone to the World Council of Churches and the Cameroon Baptist Convention say that we are no longer going to be called Cameroon Baptist Convention. We are now Ambazonia Baptist Convention with several ties with the Cameroon nation and such, I think it would have taken us somewhere. Unfortunately, these people, they stood like on in between. They were trying to go with whoever was winning. When they started, some bishops were critical of the government. When the government threatened them, or they started seeing that the government was winning, they rushed to the side of the government.
The government did not only threaten them, you will recall the government started buying, what do they call them?
Sorry,
Prados
you are
to
talking,
some of the
you are
bishops.
muted, you are
You
muted.
recall that.
Chris, you're actually muted.
Am I muted? Can you hear me?
Volume.
Oh, I
The
cannot hear
volume
you,
has
though.
gone certainly low.
Can
The
you hear
volume,
me?
the volume is low suddenly.
Okay, go on, go on. I'll go on if you.
Can you hear me, Dr. Asongo?
I can
I
hear
think
you
we had
guys.
a
Can you hear
volume.
me?
It's a volume problem.
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, all of you.
Oh, okay. But the volume, I think we just went down on the volume. I don't know whether Dr. Asongo can hear me.
JJ, can you hear us?
No, he cannot. He cannot.
All right. I
So-
will go on
so-
while we figure that out here, please.
Yes. In the context of one we started with Biya not even having the capacity or the capability of resolving this crisis. But if the opportunity does present itself, I think it's incredibly important for there to be preliminary consultations prior to any such dialogue. And those preliminary conversations will be intended to ensure that whatever outcome that comes out of the dialogue is one that serves the interests of the Cameroonian people, but it's one that can and must be implemented, because years of suffering is no longer the answer. When I say years of suffering, I put the blame, of course, on the government. I also put the blame on the fact that we have been at war. That's what war does to people. And for peace to prevail, there absolutely has to be some form of negotiations or dialogue that will take us past the impasse that we are in as a country.
Well, I think I agree with you. There has to be some pre-dialogue, especially among ourselves, Southern Cameroonians. And I have always said this, and people don't know where I am coming from. I am not a federalist. I do not stand for any form of federation, because I think after AAC 1, AAC 2, 2017, when we declared independence following the AAC2 resolutions out of Bamenda, where we said time has run out. If you do not implement what was obtained in 1961, we are actually going for our own country. That was fulfilled in 2017 when we declared Ambazonia an independent country. So I really think that we have come to the point where we have Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, we have Southern Cameroonians, one Cameroonians, and if there have to be some dialogue, mediation, negotiation, there is the need for the two parties to compare notes. Especially if you are saying you want federalism, I, an independentist, want to know what you have on your federalist paper. For example, you ask, what are the fallback positions? What is plan B, plan A, plan C? I want to know what you have. Maybe, just maybe, I go to the negotiation table as an independent, and I realized that we have to give and take. And I said, okay, maybe why don't we consider that federation? Then the next question becomes, what kind of federation? That is why it is important that we also know, I mean, federalists, one Cameroonese, they don't need to ask a question as to what independentists want. They already know it from day number one. It is the independentists saying to federalists, what form of federation exactly are you asking for? If you are talking about a referendum on what? Those are the things we want to know. Aria, I get back to you.
I know that you are the one asking the questions, but I have one question for you. When you say that you are not a federalist, what if you were granted independence today? Say you have declared independence. What form of state is Ambazonia going to have? And how are you going to determine that?
That's a great question, and it's very easy. If we were granted independence today, what form of state would Ambazonia have? Very simple. I believe Ambazonian. I mean, look at the population of Ambazonia. We say Ambazonia is 8 million. Let's assume it's not 8 million. Let's assume it's 5 million. Look at Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea is not up to 2 million. All those smaller countries around Central Africa, Congo, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, I mean, these are countries with less than 5 million people. They have regions or provinces or states. And Ambazonia is 8 million people. So, you are asking me if Ambazonia got independence, what form of state would it have? I would say a federal Ambazonia. However, it is not Chris Anu who decides that federal Ambazonia. We come to table with suggestions and we ask the people, what do you think is doable? That is the way we look at it.
Absolutely. For all intents and purposes, therefore, you are a federalist, right? Because that's the form of state that you think will be best to govern whichever territory you find yourself in. But in the same context, right, in the same context as we speak about Cameroon, this is why I overemphasize the kind of state as opposed to the form of state. Because it's the kind of state that informs the form of state. Because there's not only unitary, federal, but there's confederations. There's other loose forms of states that you could actually be creative about. I mean, we are educated people. We've had experiences from all over the world. Let us not lock down ourselves into options about the future of 30 million people or 8 million people for that matter. It is incredibly important that we, maybe for the first time on the African continent, have the people determine the kind of country that we want. Note that many African countries were granted independence and granted a constitution, and they've evolved with that. Why have we never taken time as a people to think, not with our hearts boiling from our colonial past, but to think about the kind of neighbors we want to have, the kind of neighborhoods we want to build, the kind of education, the quality of education, because it's not only certificates that make us educated, it's how we develop as a society that actually makes us educated. And for me, the biggest opportunity that we have, because of every crisis, the Amazonia crisis has created enormous opportunity, even though it has caused a lot of pain and suffering. But it's a huge opportunity for us to reflect that never again shall we live in a country where some people are first class and others are second class. Whether it is in the Ambazonia or it is in the Cameroon of the future, those are things that we must have learned. No more warlords, no more people that govern over us. How do we create a society where people are empowered from the very beginning to take their destiny, to decide the future of their streets, the future of their communities, the future of their towns? These philosophies are the philosophies that will awaken the consciousness of our people. And we must not be angry about it. Yeah?
I am totally in agreement with you. However, you will agree with me. However, you will agree with me that the circumstance doesn't allow what exactly you have described. I give you some practical examples. When we started this thing, and I mean, you've been in this, I believe, for a long time. Remember, the first labels we were given was where you are Biafrans, you are enemy in the house, essentially saying we cannot coexist. Just only yesterday, they created the post of vice president, and it became a big debate. Some say, let the Anglophones, in their words, be entitled to that post. You see that it turned into a big fight. It is not going to be. So my problem with what you are suggesting, if we were in the normal situation, dealing with people who are objective, who want to coexist, I would say, let's try that. Maybe with a new leader who comes over. But you know, as I do, whoever takes over in that country is going to reason like their predecessors because they don't govern, they are led. And they are led from France. The French are telling them, don't allow Ambazonians, Southern Cameroonians or Anglophones control the oil. Don't allow them control the bananas. Don't allow them control the rubber. Don't allow them control all those resources. That is the problem. I would have no problem coexisting with people who thought that you should have your rights, I should have my rights, I should have the right to elect my governor, elect my mayor, do away with colonial officers like DOs or DOs and so on. Let the people choose who governs them. Francophones don't believe in this. Look at Cote d'Ivoire. Tell me which Francophone country in Africa? Cote d'Ivoire, Gabon, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, all those. Which of those countries, even when they are not bilingual as us, practices this kind of system where the people choose their officials? It doesn't happen. So I would say, hey, let's coexist. You live over there, I live over here. Do what you want over there. We choose what to do over here, and we coexist. That's the way I look at it, because going by the history, they are not going to change because they are controlled, they are remote controlled.
Yeah, and going by the history, you cannot also rest in this state or in this impasse where there is no path charted forward, because as vigorously as we may defend these positions, when I started this broadcast, I really said these conversations that we're having is a lot more about, like, I originate from Osing in the Southwest Province in Manu Division. It's about a child that's going to be born in Osing tonight in a hospital that may not have all the resources to sustain that child's life. And if we think about that, then we want to do what is best to ensure that we guarantee that the next child that is born has the ability to survive. So when you think
that is correct. However, assuming the people on top are willing to provide those amenities for the people. And I will give you one example here. Because again, the problem is not us. I think there is sometimes that you have a thing hanging on your neck and you are like, you know what? Even if it's suicide, I will commit suicide. That is where it got to with us in the Southern Cameroons. Can you imagine? In the course of this war, the BLM Cultural and Development Association in the diaspora, they bought 2 graders, one Caterpillar and a grader. I think this was just about 2 years ago. They bought a Caterpillar and a grader, I think that was bought from the US here, and shipped it to the BLM to help with the state of roads, local roads. Do you know what happened? When those Caterpillars got on the ground and they began using it to upgrade the roads, Yaoundé sent information and said nobody locally has the right to maintain the roads. I mean, you are not asking the government anything, not even gas or petrol money. You have bought your own caterpillar to fix your own town. And the government from Yaoundé says nobody has the authority to do it. I mean, how do you change the way you perceive when you have this bureaucracy on top telling you you can only do what I ask you to do, even when you are not asking it for resources?
Yeah. I have no illusion that there's going to be an epiphany at the top of the government of Cameroon to change, because that would have happened. But I also want to say that we had an opportunity. There was a dialogue that was convened in 2019, which unfortunately was a missed opportunity. Knowing what we know now, that opportunity is going to present itself again. And
what did we actually miss?
What did we miss?
What did we miss in the Grand National Dialogue? By the way, were you there?
No, and I'll tell you why I wasn't there.
Okay.
Because I insisted to have preliminary conditions. I received a first-class ticket. I was going to be flown business to Cameroon.
Under what capacity were you invited there?
That was my original question. You don't just call me and invite me to a dialogue. What is my role?
Yeah.
Why will we have a conversation? What are the preliminary conditions? And I turned it down. Now, the reason I say this is that the power for change is not only in the hands of those who purport to govern, but in the hands of the people. By the decisions that we as individuals have made, whether as Anglophones or as Francophones, we have subjugated ourselves because we have not allowed ourselves to think critically and to put the interests of the people first. Even angry, you mentioned suicidal. You could be suicidal, but suicide is not the answer, right? There are moments where you have to talk to maybe a shrink to help you come out of the impasse. What I almost think that this is the moment where we have to allow cooler heads prevail for us to think about, here's the kind of configuration that can work for us as a people. And then we begin a charm offensive. Yes, that charm offensive would include France. That charm offensive would include the other 2/3 of Cameroonians that are on the other side of the Mungo. If we are going to want to find solutions, there has to be ongoing conversations. And that is how every crisis in the world eventually gets settled. Or even when it's sustained, you must not shut those doors to ongoing conversation. Because when the time comes, this is for me, the cry out that I'm making, when the time comes, let's not be arguing federation or independence or all of that. Let's argue, what kind of future do we want for our people? And if you can paint that vision clearly for everyone to see, people will align to that vision.
But let me ask you a simple question that I have even seen look at the comments here. Some people are asking that question. Why is it that Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, or Anglophones like you don't aspire to be on your own? You must cling onto La Republic. Why?
Let me put it this way. I would say that if we had a clean sheet, right?
Yeah.
If we had a clean sheet, then maybe that's a conversation that you can have. But where we are, what I'm saying is that there has to be a process, and whatever that outcome is, it is the outcome that we as a people will arrive at. But if we just say that there is no process, that's it, Southern Cameroons or nothing.
I agree with you. However,
let me just ask the question: how have we guaranteed?
I agree with you. However, how about we all, Southern Cameroonians, stand on one side and say, well, for 61 years or so, we asked for change. Change never came. You locked up our people. We want our own thing. And then when it doesn't come, we also join our mouths and discuss among ourselves. What next can we do? Then coming from the south, from the side of La Republic, and saying, let's just talk, let's just see what comes, let's go for grand national dialogue. We miss an opportunity in grand national dialogue. Why can't we stand on one side and say, let's go this way until we hit the rock, and then we can...
Well, you're assuming that we haven't hit the rock yet. I think we've hit the rock, and this is why we're looking at other options, right? You have to be practical in it's being practical. Let's be pragmatic about the outcomes that we want, right? Now, if in 10 years of this struggle, what have we built that can sustain us for the next year? In 10 years of the struggle, how many schools have we built? In 10 years of the struggle, how many jobs have we created? In 10 years of this struggle, well, how have we ensured the sustainability of energy for our people? If we are not able to answer these questions,
I can answer that question though. I can answer that question. This is what I would say. Nobody builds in the middle of war. They are not building in Ukraine, and you know what the Russians have done there. I will also say, in 10 years of war, at the very beginning, we were called 2 cubes of sugar. They have not been able to dissolve the 2 cubes of sugar. They never believe. If you ask the people, the policy makers in La Republique du Cameroon today, if with the benefit of the hindsight, they would declare a war again, you will agree with me, they will say, no, it became too expensive. They are not going to do it. Can you, let me just land. Can you believe that from nowhere we have held Cameroon bound, a trained military bound for 10 years? For 10 years. And they know the economy is not working, there are no jobs, the money is being swindled, and so on and so forth. Yes, we have not built school. Nobody expected us to build school during war, or build roads during war, or build industries during war. That's exactly what we are fighting for. So I think that the only moment you can say the steam is gone, the moment is gone, we lost it, when we go to the negotiation table and we refuse to come to agreement, and the conclusion or the consensus is, let's continue with arms, maybe I can consider your argument. But for the moment, when there are still voices, according to Tanganji, in the bushes, how can you say the war is over?
Yeah. No, so let me put it this way. In the context of Ukraine, in 5 years, Ukraine has actually built the most sophisticated drone industry in the world, that people are going to Ukraine. So yes, you can actually build during war. You know, on the one hand, you have to, and this is, we have to have learned from history and other things that the moment you declare war, you have to think about the consequences, right? And even
Correct.
before you declare, think about the consequences. And what are those consequences? And, you know, I recall talking to a leader in this process, I just don't want to call names, the day before this declaration. And I was saying, do you have a way 30 days from now to be able to guarantee salaries for civil servants? Because if you cannot, that would be the beginning of your problems. And why do I say that? Because once people do not have revenue generating income, they would find other means to generate income. But these are things that should be thought about before you make decisions, because every decision has consequences. The assumption that people make when we speak about this, it's not that we do not care about the Anglophone crisis. It's not that we do not want outcomes for our people. The same thing that you want for every child in Anglophone Cameroon is the same that I want. But I also think beyond that. I also think it, yes, this child may be speaking English, but if a child is born across the Congo, a child is a child too. So I have to also think about that because I'm a human being. And if a child is born in Nigeria or in Gabon, I have to think about that as well in the context of the elevated position that I find myself in. We have to think about all of these ramifications as we make decisions. If I take the other thing is, I also have to think about it from the perspective of the people that I purport. If I purport to represent the people, I have to think about it in that perspective because you can fight wars at the same time build bridges. You can fight war at the same time build schools and toilets. You could fight wars and at the same time create jobs. And I think that those are all parts of strategy when we talk about strategy that we have to think.
I think it's not just about the strategy, it has to do with the conditions under which you fight. Consider the Southern Sudan. They control their territory. They were building schools and building roads. Consider Somaliland. They build roads, they build schools, they build hospitals. They control their territory. We are not yet there. I believe if we had taken over some counties and began governing them, those things would have immediately followed. But listen, I really appreciate your coming on. We will have this conversation again. Let's just see we can open the line for 5 minutes, only 5 minutes. And if people want to call in, make contributions, please, the line is open. The number is right there on your screen. Before you call, make sure that the volume of your television set is shut down so you focus on your phone. Again, the number is there. But Are, I get back to you. I hear you, but you got really to consider the circumstances. We don't have any territory under control. People who built roads and schools and hospitals during war had their territory under control, or at least part of it under control. We don't have any yet, and I really believe that moment would come. That is, assuming La République du Cameroon doesn't want to call for mediation or dialogue. If they do, we are ready to sit down with them and figure things out. Let me get to the caller here, please. Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from Ground Zero.
Okay. What is on your mind?
Yes, I have a lot of questions to ask our brother. You know, I've been following this crisis since 2017 and read something in the Bible that I want to ask my brother. When the children of Israel they were in Egypt, ask brother, how long did they stay in Egypt? And what caused them to stay for that number of time? The reason is most Southern Cameroonians are pretending. They are pretending that they are giving solution to the ideas where themselves they know the solution. They don't want to belong. That is the first thing. They don't want to belong. They are pretending because a man like our brother Ari, how old is Ari? What has been in Southern Cameroon has been crippled by the Republic. Which kind of school did Ari want us to build in Southern Cameroon when he knows the thoroughly act of the Republic? Did he want to kill more people? They talk about jobs. I think Ari is from Mount. Has he ever been to Mount? Has he ever created something in Mamfe? So these are people that they come on the show to tell us. Even the Bible says, he that is with you will talk with you. He that is against you will talk his own side. So the pretentious attitude that they bring on the show doesn't help us. What helps us now is that they bring strategy for us to come together to face La Republique. Because no matter what they say, La Republique is not hearing. I heard you citing a lot of things. They will never do one of them. Never. Never do one of them. Because we don't have a president. Because he only comes out occasionally when he wants to dress his selfish interest. He's not dressing the population. So what can Array promise the southern Cameroonians? That in the next 3 months he will create jobs, and then La Republique will not destroy those jobs.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for the calling. Hello.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for the... Where are you calling from? Are you calling from Mamfe?
I'm calling from Kumba.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you for the call. All right, Ray, you can respond to that, please.
Well, let me thank you for expressing yourself so passionately. It's incredibly important for us not to see ourselves as two sides, right? The fact that I bring my perspective doesn't mean that I don't walk in the shoes of the Anglophones, because I want a solution just as much as everybody else wants. And I think that we would only be successful as a people when we respect the differences in opinion. Since the beginning of my conversations and all through this Anglophone crisis, I have never pointed a finger of blame at another party. I accept responsibility for where we are as a country, and I do what I believe is right from my perspective to find a solution, even in the circumstances. Let's take, for example, it's talking about, we know that when you declare independence, it means you are controlling territory. That's what independence means.
No, so that is not what it means. I would defy with you there. When you declare independence,
can I finish?
Hold on a second. When you declare independence, it means you have a territory with internationally recognized boundaries. It means you have a population. It means you have go ahead, please. But that is the point. You don't have to have control over a territory.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. That's just part of it. You're controlling a territory. You have all of those things. So if you have declared independence, it means that you have answers to those solutions. If you don't have answers, then you're not really independent. And if you are not independent, then you have to negotiate your way towards independence, and that entails a process. And unless we're able to understand that it will take a process, then you cannot conclusively say that you have independence, and then ironically, you're asking for somebody to facilitate your independence. No. And again, I'm not saying this. I respect everybody's opinion and their positions that they have taken. Every decision that we make has consequences. We all assume those consequences. I assume consequences of my decision, but I'm convinced that at the end of the day, whether it is true independence or federalism or whatever, that at the end of the day, what I want to see is prosperity.
Ari, a second, let's take this caller and then I get back to you. Hello.
Yeah, Chris. I'm sorry. Are you on the air? This is Larry.
Oh, I am on the air, sir. I'm live. I told you I'm calling into the show.
You're right. I'm calling into the show.
Okay.
Array is a joke. I'm sorry. I have to be harsh because
no, but use the right tone to make your argument.
Okay, this is the tone of people who have suffered a genocide. You cannot kill countrymen when Ngongo and Atanganji are adopting the French psychological warfare tactics of what we call false flag attacks, paying people to kill each other to discredit the movement. And Are has the gall to sit there and pretend that if you have independence, you should do this and that. What is he talking about? This is the problem we have. We have these people who are fundamentally dishonest, who are pretending that there was a country. I will quote Pierre Mesmer in Le Blanc S'en Vont. I don't think a lot of them understand French, and that is the problem we have with Anglophones who are debating this issue. If they understood the language and the lexicon of what the French are saying, they will not be speaking the way they are speaking. I will take umbrage with people who claim that we have failed. We have failed in what? We have failed in expressing our intention to be an independent territory after we have seen the example of accountability and transparency that we showed in a brief time when we had the opportunity for self-government. Now, let me make it very clear. Bismarck has said it. If the great problems of the day cannot be solved by parliamentary speeches and debates, they will be solved by blood and iron. The people of Ambazonia have paid for their independence with their blood. They have.
All right.
We have a cabal of criminals who are trying to succeed. Now, let me conclude by saying this. After 40 years of journalism, having written 2 books about Africa, I will tell you that the content analysis of what we are having in Cameroon is preparation for Biya's war of succession, even if Ambazonians were not involved. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for the call, sir. You have a great night. I'm having you here on the show on Wednesday, right?
Yes, sir. I really need for us to deepen this issue because we should stop pretending. You just saw what Ukraine is doing in Russia. Let us stop pretending. We came to the West and we are seeing the evolution of international relations. We are seeing how problems are being solved. You don't go to negotiations from a position of weakness.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Okay. I read you heard that, right?
Yeah, I mean, people are entitled to their opinion. There's a reason why there are some people who are pacifists. Mahatma Gandhi got the independence of India through a peaceful movement. We are benefiting some of the rights, civil rights that we have living here in the United States was got through peaceful movements. So to dismiss somebody who thinks about another approach, I wonder what kind of country we're going to have when we cannot accept people with differing opinions. And I think that that's even more troubling when we hear this from people that are supposed to be sophisticated and educated. That is actually very, very disturbing that these people want to live in a country in which they would not be able to entertain a divergence of opinion.
I don't think that is what he is saying there, though. I don't think what he said tantamount to what you are suggesting.
An educated person begins his conversation by saying Array is a joke. Does he know me? He says I'm pretentious. Does he know me? But I need for you what I have just said. We have to take this into consideration. Because will I want to live in a country with people? I'm running from a country where my opinion is not being heard. Do I want to live in a country with people who do not understand the essence of this? Is why I keep talking about what kind of country.
But are you by that saying that a francophone will understand you and accommodate you better than your brother?
No, that's not what I'm
Southern
saying.
Cameroons?
That's not what I have said. I have said repeatedly that in this process, we must understand that there has to be a negotiated path. And
Absolutely.
in negotiations, you always must be open-minded. You have to decide what you can not let go and what you can let go. But to do that, you have to listen to other people. So if I'm an Anglophone myself, and if anyone has to represent me, then they must ask my opinion. I want to give my opinion. I want to be heard too. So let us listen to one another. People have difference in opinion, but let's have a common purpose. What is our common purpose, my brother? At this point, our number one purpose was, how do we stop the pain and suffering of our people? Two, how do we ensure that our people never again experience what we have experienced in the next 65 years? Right, in the last 65 years. How do we ensure that their future becomes one that is prosperous? And if you think about this in a chronologic order, the first step is stopping the bleeding. How do you stop the bleeding? That's where the negotiations comes in. Then you can go on to that next step. Is how do we
Don't you think
ensure that
we would have been there a long time ago if the regime that you keep referring to was willing to come to the table? Look at, we had Switzerland. They refused to come to the table. We had Canada. I mean, we are the only side that keeps talking about dialogue, mediation, negotiation. You don't see that on the other side. So I don't understand how you can blame us, sit there and blame us and make the suggestion that we are the intransigent ones.
No, I'm not blaming anyone. If there's one thing that I want to do, is not apportion blame. What I am, in fact, if there's anybody to blame, let's face facts. I say that even if the regime in Yaoundé for the last 50 years before 2017 did not want to find a solution, the last 10 years has given them ample time to have had a solution to the crisis. The fact that the government has not been able to, for the last 10 years, to find a solution tells me something, that this government is unwilling and incapable of finding a solution, right? So it's not the government that will be the answer. It is the people of Cameroon. And when I say the people of Cameroon, maybe I should put it in the plural, the peoples of Cameroon. When I say the peoples of Cameroon, I mean the Anglophones and I mean the Francophones. Because we would not, either way that you look at it, my brother, we would not find a solution if we do not work together. Like I said, even the worst marriages end in some kind of divorce. A divorce is a negotiated settlement that we decide that we're not going to live together, but here are the terms under which we're going to agree to separate. So it's a practical approach that I personally believe will stop the bleeding in the short term, will allow for us to build the framework that is necessary for us to ensure a prosperous future for our people, all our peoples. And I want to put it in this way so that people can understand that I'm not only thinking passionately about one thing. People like to throw labels as you are La Republique or your independence or your federationist. I'm none of those things. I'm just for the child that is going to be born in Cameroon tomorrow to have a better life. Because we have that responsibility at our age to prepare for a better future for our country. And we can choose to do it. How we choose to do it, we can choose the path of force, or we could choose the path of constant, rigid commitment to a peaceful outcome. And that's the path that I choose to go. Even as foolish as that may sound in the context of our country, that may probably be the most plausible that we have when the time comes.
Well, let's hope that that time comes, and maybe we join our heads, sit on that table, and decide what outcome that we want. We're not going to have an eternal national dialogue here to resolve that conflict. So,
No, of course not.
let's have the discussion coming in, and you mentioned the ability to accommodate one another. That is why I bring everybody, everybody with an opinion on this show. I don't care if you say, hey, Chris, I know you're a terrible man. It doesn't worry me. It doesn't put a wound on my skin. So, but I like to bring everybody here because we form opinion out of it. So I really want to thank you for coming on. It's been quite a long time, and I look forward to having you back again, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation. And hopefully we can continue this conversation as time goes on.
All right. You have a great night.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Before I go, I just want to make the appeal that I brought to you last week. We are functioning from this platform because of some people like you out there who have resolved to support ABS. We will not come to you without being able to pay the bills that are here, the studio. Again, we do not come to you from a basement or from a bedroom. We come to you from a professional studio that we pay for. We come to you through internet, through electricity, through the satellite. I am appealing to you, please, to help us do a one-time donation to ABS so that we can keep on bringing this education information to you and to our people who are on the ground. This is the one platform that is the voice of Ambazonia. And please, if you are a true independentist, this is your platform. We can only survive if you support us. That is my appeal. The number on your screen is good for Zelle and is good for Cash App. Please use it, do or make a one-time donation to help ABS running. We will deeply appreciate that. I think I should take this last caller before I call it a night here. All right. Hello.
Hello, Secretary.
Hello, sir. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Bamenda.
From Bamenda. All right. What is on your mind, sir?
Yeah, I want to thank you first of all for picking my call and for trying to educate, bring together the Southern Cameroons together to see how they can get away with this calamity that is going on in the Southern Cameroon. I just want to ask a question to Mr. Array that he's projecting the federation or whatever, I don't understand, like any other Southern Cameroon. So I want to ask him, what can he do to stop the bleeding? Because Southern Camerooners have tried to negotiate, and La Republique is not willing to do anything. So I don't know the way he wants to convince the Southern Cameroons to go and federate again with La Republique of Cameroon after 60 years and all this killing, all this burning of houses and every negative thing that's been going on. And again, he wants the Southern Cameroonians to build or to construct bridges, schools. Under which context are they going to build the school under this war when La Republique military are everywhere, killing people, arresting, people for ransom. So I don't understand why it's here. Because these are the people that used to discourage people who are determined to get their stake in their hands. So, so the last time you brought one lady who was talking about a mother. She's a mother, and still talking about going to live with La Republique. So when you bring people on your show who are not bringing solutions, suggesting something that will to make Southern Cameroonians feel like they are a people, I don't understand. When you keep bringing these type of people, you discourage people. It makes life very, very uncomfortable for Southern Cameroonians. So I'm pleading with you that next time when you want to bring somebody, make sure that person is going to say something that will make people feel that they need life. They are a people and they need their own way of living. Southern Cameroonians are the Anglo-Saxons and the Francophones. The La Republique is the French system. So they can never live together. First of all, nobody will want somebody to dictate what you have to do. And that is what he's saying here, that they don't want people to dictate over. Southern Cameroonians already live for themselves and they knew how to live with each other. They built places by themselves before this war or before independence, before they joined La Republique. They had places, they took care of their roads, they had sanitary inspectors that go around, see that your own place is clean. But now, have we benefited from La Republique of Cameroon that he wants Southern Cameroon again to go and live in that mess? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, Are has gone. Maybe next time when he comes on the show, he may answer your question. And for your question or the quarrel about bringing people with diverse opinions like him on the show, I think it is empowering to know what others know or to know what others know and the way they think, so that when you strategize, you know exactly what their argument is. That is the essence of having them here. It can only strengthen your argument, your point, because if you don't know it, you cannot debate with them. All right. Thank you for the call.
Thank you, sir.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. We will call it a night here. But again, please remember, you got the phone number on the screen to support us to keep on bringing you these debates and education, so that together we can build our own future. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to being back here on Wednesday, and I am looking forward to having Professor Carson Anyangwe right in here, physically in this ABS studio, live. All right? But please help us, support us. That number on your screen is good for Zelle, is good for Cash App. Thank you very much for tuning in. God bless.